All right, Bannock County Board of County Commissioners are now in session. First item on our agenda is invoices, commissioners report, applications, credit applications. I didn't see anything on the commissioners report.
And the stack.
Like Melissa's having an event.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the invoices, commissioners report, and credit applications as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next we have the salary rate approval forms. One in here for an HR person.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we approve the salary rate approval forms as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next we have payroll report.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we approve the payroll report as presented.
Have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then we go to alcohol licenses. Always amazed me that we have alcohol for our first birthday.
Mr. Chair, we approve the alcohol licenses as requested.
We have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next we have certificate of residency.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we approve the certificate of residency as requested.
We have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Jason, something on. All right. Misty? Have you heard from Mr. Murdoch?
I haven't talked to him about this whole thing, so.
I don't
I
either.
don't know where he's at.
What's that?
I don't know where he's at. I don't know if we want to even move forward with this or not, so.
Well, he isn't here, so we can reschedule it or see if he shows up in a little bit.
Okay,
Do that?
sure.
Okay.
Okay, I will
Thank
head back
you.
to my office
We'll-
and if he comes, just
We'll get
let me
you.
know.
I'll
All
come
right.
down and get you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, looks like DeVere and crew.
I'll even try to speak quickly instead of my usual self. How's that?
Ready? Go.
Yeah, I'm DeVere Hunt with Best LLC. We are the contractors also for Senator Hope South. And I'll let you guys introduce yourselves real quick.
I'm Heather Moore with Best LLC, also representing Center for Hope South today.
Yeah, and I'm Nancy Espeseth. I'm the director of Center for Hope South here in Pocatello.
So we appreciate you guys letting us come and present. Historically, the commissioners have provided some support to what used to be the Hope and Recovery Center. About a year and a half ago, we took over that contract as Center for Hope South and moved the facility into the Crisis Center building over at City Center campus. And so what we wanted to present is the opportunity to maybe increase our recovery coach services that we're providing to the community by utilizing the opioid funds. And so I'm gonna have Nancy kind of take a few minutes, explain some of the numbers from what was before and where the numbers are now in regards to the number of citizens and community members that we're working with.
Yeah, and just to kind of explain what our role is here in Bannock County is our recovery coaches, the services are free. We are funded through grants and other entities. But some of the services that we provide is, number one, we provide support to clients at the crisis center. If they're going through a substance abuse crisis or a mental health crisis, our recovery coaches will go in, meet them where they're at, talk about their own lived experience and what has worked for them. And then they will try to help them in any way, like find housing, treatment, work with case managers at the crisis center to help them out. We also pick up people at Bannock County Jail on a regular basis, primarily for the treatment courts. And we'll pick them up at the jail, take them to their probation appointments, hook them up and take them to their treatment appointments, sometimes accompany them here to court to just provide that one-on-one support. Our numbers, when we took over in August of 2022, the first 5 months, we were averaging 20 clients per month serving at the crisis center. In the last 4 months, we are averaging 60 individuals per month. And then we do recovery coaching at Center for Hope South. And from August to December 2022, we averaged 10 individuals per month. And then since January 1st, 2024 till now, we have served an average of 50 individuals per month. So we're increasing our services to a wide variety of people, and we are kind of getting spread a little bit thin, and we would like to access some of the opioid funding for a half-time, 20-hour-a-week recovery coach. We were approached by Madison County commissioners, Bingham County commissioners, and they access their funds to help support in this same manner in their locations. And so we thought we would come to you and seek some funding as well.
One of the things, just to help you to understand, because you may have a question, well, what does the Crisis Center do? What does the Center for Hope do? So with the Crisis Center, as you guys know, you guys have been great partners for us with the state in regards to that funding piece and to be the fiduciary. You guys have that fiduciary role with that. When someone comes into the Crisis Center, that's where we can help them, is inside those Crisis Center walls. And relocating the Center for Hope into the same building, we now have the ability for these recovery coaches to go into the Crisis Center, develop a relationship with them, so when they're discharged from the Crisis Center, they're not just discharged to the community now. Now they have somebody that will work with them, follow up with them, help them to make sure they get to those appointments so that they can have a long-term impact. It really has allowed us to expand the walls of the Crisis Center into the entire community. There are also numerous group activities that they can provide safe and sober activities that they can engage in. So it really creates a natural network for them to receive the help, which hopefully creates a long-term sustainable change in their lives so that they're not needing to be in the crisis center as much. They're not dealing with our law enforcement. They're not in the jails. We're helping them to be successful in that area. Just to explain how those two work together.
And just if I could add to that too, I think the cool part about having them integrated into the crisis center is a lot of these individuals don't have like an insurance or a payer to help with services. So when we discharge them from the crisis center, they kind of get lost in the system and then back in the system, if you will. So what's good about these recovery coaches is they can help kind of hold their hand and follow them and make sure they do a warm handoff to an agency who can help them get onboarded with insurances and then take their services from that point forward. So I think it really helps a lot with like recidivism and helping people stay out of the hospitals and those types of things. So it's a really good supplement to the crisis center services.
And the key to that, it's free services to anybody. Anybody can get help, and that's one of the coolest things about the crisis center. Anybody can get help, and that's what's awesome about this, is anyone can get help as well.
Right, and we have these recovery coaches meet with the case managers in the crisis center every Wednesday at 11 o'clock, and so the collaboration is really key, and it's good for these individuals. And it would be, I think, as you guys know, I think obviously helping us financially has been a big key in keeping these services rolling, but also something we constantly have to chase. So,
Yeah, being grant funded, it's every year chased down. So I provided that information as far as the amounts, but we can answer any questions before we go into the financial piece. If you have any other questions about what it is.
Well, about 4 years ago, we quit contributing to Hope because we didn't feel like we was getting anything. I mean, honestly, and that's why we went that direction. Sounds like you changed things around somewhat, but using opioid funds or a designated fund is challenging to me because they're one-time monies. We don't know what's, the next few years, what's going to happen. And so to fund a position and can make a commitment is kind of a challenging deal for me anyway.
And I can speak to that if you'd like, Ernie.
Okay.
So we have that same situation in Idaho Falls, we do in Rexburg, Blackfoot, all of the recovery coaches and everybody that we hire, we always are very transparent with them and say, look, we have funding for 1 year for this position. So everybody knows coming into that, just because of the nature of that this is a non-profit entity. We're the staffing contractor, but the entity itself still exists. Center for Hope is a 501c3. Center for Hope South is a chapter to the Center for Hope program in Idaho Falls. And so everybody that goes into this, they know that their position is funded on an annual basis. Like Heather said and Nancy said, it's our job as the administration to keep trying to chase that funding to ensure that there is a future position for them. But they also understand that the sustainability side of this, we recognize if you provide one-time funds for this year, then we got to come back next year. And we've got to present that, hey, it was profitable for your community, it was a good investment of funds, and recognizing that those funds could be reduced or eliminated at any time. So we recognize that part of your dilemma.
So I was watching the news this week, and they were talking about a facility here in Pocatello that was a recovery area, housing, counselors and stuff, and all of a sudden, in one day, they're all out on the street.
I can give
So,
you,
that just,
I give
it
you
just
the
happened this
background.
week, so.
yeah, we're aware of that
So the
situation.
background on that, they actually, without going into much detail, all of their contracts were pulled from a federal investigation of fraudulent behavior. And so that wasn't funding, those were contracts after a year-long investigation. So I can't speak to the specifics on it. We're familiar with that. It was a similar situation in Idaho Falls likewise. They were an entity that worked in both areas. They were able to connect with another facility in Idaho Falls to continue some services. And I believe that they were unable to do that down here. So that was not about funding.
Well, I'm just saying, I saw that on the
Yeah.
news this week.
Well, just to clarify, that was not a funding issue, so.
Talking about,
Yeah.
what if it ends next year?
You
What
know,
what happens to those clients? What happens to,
Yeah.
the
You know,
counselors?
I know the opioid funding in the other counties, maybe Bannock is different, but they're getting funding on a regular basis for the next 15 years with the opioid funding. I think Bingham it ranges each and every year. Bingham is getting between $20,000 and $30,000 a year. There's actual schedule that they have, and so does Madison County. Theirs is a little bit higher, but
I think they had some funding built up that
Yeah.
we could ensure that it would be longer
Yeah.
than a year.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
even up to 5.
But
One
yeah,
of
it's
the things
guaranteed.
that we likewise do as the administration side of that, when we first took over the staffing contract of that, I think they had the funding to last them about 17 minutes.
Yeah.
They had nothing in the bank to extend them.
Yeah.
And so where we are at this point, I think we're at about 11 months, that if we ended up with no funding, we would have about 11 months to chase and to try to find other funding to extend ourselves. That was one of our keys in the very beginning, was to create a balance inside of the nonprofit, because funding sources are going to come and go, and we're going to have to chase different funding sources from time to time. So that's what we're trying to do, is to always be out in front of this so that we can maintain that. But we recognize that those funding sources, especially when an economy turns, which our economy could turn, and it's those peripheral, non-mandated services that you lose the funding for to start.
Yeah. Tony?
Sorry. So for me, you guys know we do the MAL program inside of our jail. For me, this would be, and I've reached out to this organization. I went down to their office and asked if, because we need that warm handoff from when our inmates are done with that MAL program, they're being released. This is one of the handoffs that we're looking for to do continued treatment for these people. So, I mean, it adds to us to help, because we have maybe one or two other entities. And I know I've gone downstairs. I didn't actually talk to, I forget your name.
Nancy.
Nancy. It was a guy that was working the front desk and he left the card. But just know I am reaching out to your organizations, because I think you guys do it with Bonneville.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
So I just want to give my input as far as, it is an important factor, especially for our MAL program, because that, it seems like just recently we're getting more and more people engaging in that program. But usually that missing piece is when they leave our facility, and where do they go, you know? But I would ask if you guys are gonna be a stable organization, that I'd ask that some of your people come in our
Okay.
jail,
Love to.
make themselves familiar with our,
For
with
sure.
our people that are in our program. That way it's not such a foreign handoff.
For sure.
That they're familiar with that person,
We
the
would love,
organization.
we'd love to do anything like that. And Nancy can speak to a little bit how we do that in Bonneville County with the CRC likewise. And that interaction and some of those group educational groups that we want to provide. So these are the exact kind of individuals that we hope to help in the community, because they don't have funding otherwise, they don't have a support system
Correct.
otherwise. And this gives them those healthy activities and the support place to go to as they're getting released. We actually have a contract with the women's prison likewise, where we have a case manager inside of the women's prison, and they help release and coordinate them integrating back into the communities, wherever that might be. We have a piece that we work with St. Vincent's in Boise. They're part of our contract likewise, as they integrate back into that facility too. So those are just a few things we do.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sway either way.
Well, I appreciate the input, Tony.
No, yeah,
Thank you, Sheriff. We
and, yeah,
appreciate it.
definitely, we'll follow up with that.
Okay.
So if you guys are using opioid funds for this, are you running through, that employee will only deal with individuals that have opioid addiction? Because those funds are very restricted in the use, so how could we ensure that that person is only dealing with that?
We would
That
follow
clientele.
any direction you guys want to use. It's your funding through the county.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to say, hey, look, we want these guys specifically working with the sheriff's program, we can do that. Whatever you guys want to do, however you want to box that, we can make that work.
I think one of the things that we discussed, that's a really good question, because those funds are very,
Specific.
specific, is that even though, like, so obviously there's a lot of people with opioid issues, but also the potential with fentanyl out there, being laced into methamphetamine and other drugs, THC, that becomes a potential almost for everyone.
Some of the things that we're familiar with, not asking for it, but we also have recovery coaches working in some of the specialty courts in Blackfoot as well, in Bingham County as well as in Bannock County. So there's numerous things that we could do, but we can structuralize it in the way that is most beneficial to Bannock County.
Okay. Well, I'm not even gonna ask for a vote right now, because we gotta talk to Christie, we gotta find out funds and limitations and a direction to go. You got great support there on the next row back, so
Thanks, Sheriff.
that's very positive in my opinion.
We
But
didn't even request that. That was just unprompted, right? There's not a dinner on it or nothing.
Silver
But,
lining.
so I would put this back on our agenda after we have time for Christie to look things over. We'll look at what the stipulations would be.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Go
just
ahead.
to provide them some comfort, I'm more than happy if we go forward with this pending approval, just so that everybody knows that our intent is to go that direction if it meets the guidelines and things. And I would like to put the stipulation on that our funds are used specifically to help the sheriff in the jail and
Okay.
and make that tie if we go down that path.
And they're asking for another employee, so
Right.
that's why I say this is a great discussion, John.
Christie, you have any comments on this today?
Just the question I asked, and I'd love to see that extra
I
paperwork.
think the
again, 'cause I don't
total
even
funding we're
recall.
looking for a 20-hour person is like $39,000 per year.
Yeah, so $40,000.
So I'll just look through this, and if I've got any questions, I'll just reach out,
Yeah.
so that I can compare it with the opioid requirements.
Commissioner
Appreciate
Huff, I
that.
appreciate your support on that likewise, and Sheriff Anu, anything we can do to help there would be more than happy to.
I have a couple questions real quick. How many recovery coaches do you have now? I missed that
Yeah,
somewhere.
here in the Pocatello office is 3.
Three?
3
And what's-
full-time.
What's their caseload?
They're pretty busy working with the crisis center, and also, like I said, we work with some of the treatment courts as well. We do a lot of outreach for people. This week was a lot of misplaced people at the facility that closed down. They've been helping out a lot with, and so they're stretched pretty thin. And
How long does a recovery coach work with an individual? So my question goes,
Yeah.
if you're seeing 60 people a month, how long is that coach tethered to that individual?
Yeah, it kind of depends on their needs, you know? Somebody with a lot of needs, like if they need to go to probation, they'll drive them there. Maybe to get an ID, a lot of people need to get an ID when they get out of jail. Pick up food, we have a food pantry, clothing. So that one person, like right out of jail, it might be 3 or 4 hours that day. And then if they need any support, the rest, the next couple weeks, we provide that. So it's kind of hard to say specifically. It kind of depends on what their needs are.
Well, and some people obviously want to fall back into old habits, so these recovery coaches can kind of help be a net to catch them before they fall back into kind of what their habits were before they were either in jail or in prison. The other thing they can do is link them into services with, like I said earlier, an agency that could help them get the right insurance and maybe hook them with a case manager, medication, like do medication management with a prescriber, those types of things. So they kind of hold their hand until they feel comfortable that individual will be well taken care of. And it could vary, like Nancy was saying, from person to person.
Another part of the programming is likewise, so we do the hands-on recovery coaching, but there's also peer-ran groups that once they've kind of stabilized out, there's various groups that they can attend on an ongoing basis that just exist in the center. One of the other things that we're very lucky in this community to have is the free clinic, because we do a lot of work with the free clinic. When you have individuals that do not have any kind of funding, et cetera, but they maybe have physical or mental health issues, then we can take them into the free clinic, and we do a lot of work coordinating with them as well. It works out really well to have that, like, I'll just throw a pitch out for Sean Menchaca and the Port of Health Trust. His vision, the money that they put into those facilities, it's really a huge benefit to this community. If I had a Port of Health Trust in Idaho Falls, oh my gosh, it would be so amazing. And so he really has been a huge part of those parts.
One of the things too that we really promote is long-term recovery, because there's a lot of investment that it's put into those treatment courts, but what do they do when they're done? You know? And so long-term recovery kind of looks like we have a softball team. We're going to have a recovery kind of event at the zoo where we have secured funding to get people to go to the zoo with their families. So it's ongoing, you know, those connections and those activities that can help create a long-term path.
Right, we went from doing one per quarter when we took over the contract to now 3 a month,
Yeah.
which is nice. So, and we wouldn't be able to do any of this without funding, obviously. And again, like I said earlier, it's just something we'll always have to chase. But in my opinion, I do think that these funds really are good for this type of work that we do. And I think that we would put it to good use. We have a grant monitor that really is kind of a spreadsheet guru. And so she would make sure that she was collecting good data that would be very sound, that we could make sure that it does link into however you guys want us to set it up. So.
Okay, Tony,
Just,
come on up here.
they brought up the
Come on up
free
here.
clinic. Well, we met with the free clinic, and it was a very long meeting to get them on board with us in that now. So they're on board, and they actually come and do services in our building. So, and interesting thing is they're all in the same building, so it's probably a good marriage.
That was
right now.
intentional.
Yeah.
It was very
For me, it's like, because I went from the free clinic over to your facility to see if we can get you guys on board. So everything's right there, and I think that piece for us, that crucial point for those people when they leave is when they leave our building, we're not just kicking them out to that lobby and go, well, good luck. Because that's really, that point right there is when you're going to either lose them or they're going to die.
They're so vulnerable.
Yeah,
Them.
that's that piece right there is where I think a facility like them, that's where we need to make that connection. So,
Well, the interesting thing is we talk about all these different organizations. Every one of them come to us asking for donations, every single one. And so there's only so many dollars to put in the pot, and that's always a challenging.
Well, we accept the direction of how you would want to utilize these dollars to be most efficient for the county, utilizing, if it's helping your citizens coming out of the jail, whatever that might be, within those restrictions of the opioid funding.
And that's the key right now is we'll find out what we can and cannot do, and we'll follow those directions, because I'm not against if we have funds that are available to put them in the right cause.
Christy, and I'll send you some additional information.
That would be great.
Do you know, do you keep statistics on how many of these people are on Medicaid or qualify for Medicaid?
Nancy, do you manage the insurance?
No,
side of all that?
so,
We do inside of the crisis center.
Yeah.
We'll manage any private or Medicaid insurance on those individuals. I know that it's been about a year ago now that after COVID kind of started rolling out and being a more normalized piece, there were a lot of individuals that the state kicked off of Medicaid at that time. And that increased the number of individuals that needed help that did not have the insurance piece of that anymore.
Because if I remember right, these are billable services if they are on Medicaid.
Yes.
They are, but we do not bill out of the center. That's one of the pieces that is important to our advisory board, is they want to make sure that this does not become a for-profit facility. This is a facility, I mean, anybody that wants to can come, but we really want to help the population and those individuals that do not have the funding. They can obtain recovery coaches throughout the community. We even have a different company that does do the for-profit stuff, but this here is the section of individuals that do not have the funding to get the help they need.
So also, like when somebody's released from jail, a lot of times they won't have that set up, Medicaid set up. So that's one of the things our recovery coaches do. When they pick them up, they'll take them to the center. We have computers and we'll get them signed up for Medicaid. And as Heather talked about, that warm handoff then to a treatment provider. But also when you talk about long-term recovery, a lot of those people might have jobs that make too much money for Medicaid and maybe don't have insurance that will pay for it. And so we're kind of a gap filler in a variety of different ways.
Good question.
Jimmy Gentry, most of you guys know him, just so you are aware, he sits on the advisory board over the Center for Hope, likewise. We did have Donna Honina until we lost Donna from the tribe. Who are the other Pocatello representatives on that?
Those are the two.
Those are the two.
Just one last question for me. How many of your people you serve are homeless?
I would say probably, especially working with the crisis center, boy, I would say 40 to 50%.
Yeah.
About what I was gonna say.
They have established a couple of safe and sober housing facilities. It's called the Oxford House, one for women, one for men, that we refer people to on a regular basis. And then also the aids to friends, we work with quite a bit too.
You guys do a lot of outreach to some of the homeless camps to try to help those camps to get some of that help likewise. I know previously you've taken wood down to them for...
out in American Falls.
Out in American Falls,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
John?
You said you have 3 recovery coaches full-time right now?
Mhm.
And according to this document I have, you're serving an average of 110 a month currently, is that right? So are these recovery coaches serving those 110 people?
Yes.
Yes.
So everyone's got an average caseload of about 37
Mhm.
per month?
But there's also a lot that are coming in and going out that other back door likewise.
Well,
Because
they'd be
we're not,
included in these numbers, right?
well, but if
I
you
mean,
look
if you have
and
an
say,
individual come in, don't you count them?
what's that?
If you have an individual come in during the month, I'm assuming you'd be on this list.
Correct. But so as you have individuals that come in on this list, okay, and now we're transitioning them out the backside,
Right.
they can still come to some of those daily activities or whatever likewise. We're also receiving new individuals in. And so in the recovery world, I don't know how familiar you are with the recovery world, but in the recovery world, it's one of the greatest subcultures we have because there is a responsibility that they all take. So all of our recovery coaches have multiple, probably 8 to 10 people that are not on their caseload that they are still a support to out in the community. They may not come inside the center, but there's somebody that, hey, they've got the phone, they can call them. They might even drop back into the crisis center or something that way. And so to try to say, hey, there's 110 and say that that's a stagnant number of individuals is really difficult to define it that way.
Well, no, I'm assuming it's not stagnant since you have these differences from 2022 until now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think one way too to kind of explain that is that those numbers are sitting down on a table or a specific task with another person doing recovery coaching. Beyond that, we have our self-help groups. We're starting a grief and loss group. Activities. We probably have at 3 activities a month, 100 people come between those 3 activities. And so those numbers are specific to sitting down one-on-one with a recovery coach and doing a wellness plan and a relapse prevention plan. It doesn't indicate the full entirety of their scope of work.
Other questions?
How much money do we have in the opioid? Do you know?
I could not tell you. I wasn't prepared with that information.
Well, we'll put this back on our agenda.
Perfect.
It'll be probably a couple of weeks. I'm in Boise next week, Jeff's in California next week, so it'd be the following week.
Appreciate your time.
We appreciate your
Thank you for
time.
your time.
We appreciate everything you guys do to help us with the crisis
Thanks,
centers
Sheriff.
likewise. So thank
It's
you.
good to see you all.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Tony, you're up.
Thanks, Christy. Appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks, Sharon.
Tony Manu, Bannock County Sheriff.
Andy Iverson, Bannock County Sheriff.
So, we're here for, I guess, a money talk again. So, we are here to ask for an additional $7,000 for a vehicle lease. So, to explain the whole brevity of it is, so when we started this wellness deputy, we didn't account for a vehicle. I mean, we got the Ranger, but that's for the on-site. So currently, we've talked to Scott, we figured out a schedule for this deputy it's gonna be a kind of a hybrid. We figured out the schedule was most effective for Scott from, is it Thursday or Wednesday? The Saturday? Thursday to
We're
Sunday?
gonna run Thursday through Sunday, and they'll start at 4 in the afternoon till about 2 in the morning. And their main focus will be that until the park closes and people disperse and close the gates. And then after that, they'll go to some patrol duties.
So it's kind of a hybrid, which services that, but their main responsibility is always going to be the wellness center. So, well, when that all occurred in the whole budgeting, we didn't plan for a car for that individual. So, in our current budget, we were able to get close to obtaining a 6th car instead of 5 within our lease. And how we did that was we went to a lesser vehicle, a less costly vehicle with all of them. So we ordered 5. The original plan was to get 5 new vehicles like we do every year. 5 Tahoes. Instead, we switched to 5 Dodge trucks, the Ram trucks, which they cost less. We're kind of uneasy about whether we're going to like them or not, but it was our best option to try to get into that 6th vehicle with our current budget. I thought we were going to reach it, but we ended up 6th because of, or $7,000 short because of some of the equipment that we got to put into it. So that's where we are, but we're able to obtain that with $7,000, and then it's.
See, $2,500 for that lift. We could have put $2,500. Could have been on ARPA money.
So that's where we are, and that covers that vehicle. Because it wasn't planned. We thought, well, I think the plan was that Ranger, but.
That position was really last minute, and we missed a handful of things,
Correct.
including the vehicle.
Well, I think we're gonna save a handful of things on the destruction of what happened up there last year.
Yes.
Is the
Absolutely.
goal to take control of that facility.
Took a little tweaking, but we got close. I thought we were gonna hit it within our current budget, but that's where we were short, and that was the only option as far as the cheapest police-rated vehicle. They're all police-rated vehicles, so.
Well, I didn't
And that's
think
what
Dodge trucks were allowed in Bannock County, the other departments.
Well, I had to look at Iverson and says, you got no choice, bro. This is what you're getting. If we've got to.
What's the apprehension with the Dodge?
If they're going to hold up, if they're going to hold up. I think everybody has their own opinions about certain vehicles.
And the Durangos were great.
And the
So-
Durangos just were not good vehicles for us.
So what's the difference then between the Tahoe and the Dodge?
We just had really good luck with Tahoe.
No, let me
Money-wise.
rephrase the question, money-wise.
Oh, it's a big difference. I mean, that original or current budget, that would cover 5 cars. So if you're talking about dollars and cents, well, like I said, we were able to closely get 6 vehicles with the current money that you guys gave us for the 5 Tahoes.
So another new Tahoe would be $60,000.
Oh yeah,
So
easy.
taking the Dodge, you're $60,000.
So then you go, okay, why are they so much less? But maybe it's a route we take from this point on if they're good vehicles.
But if our track record with the Durangos has not been stellar compared to the Tahoes, can we find some money somewhere to do the right thing instead of shortchanging it?
Well, the problem is right now, we can't get Tahoes. That's the other reason.
We're in a situation because we we're attempting, we talked to our, to get this in January, started the process of, okay, we need to get this roll, actually it was October. And then, probably about a month ago, we got told that, the Tahoes were not going to be available because they don't know when they're going to come in. And, approximately about a year and a half ago, I was told by one of our vendors that you guys aren't going to get Tahoes. And we're like, we just got them, it's pretty easy. Well, it finally came true that they're out there, but they're not available to us at this time. And to give you an example, Utah, from what we were told, is Utah Highway Patrol ordered 800 of them, and they got 50 or 60. And so everybody's scrambling to get these different vehicles. And for your question about apprehension, whether or not do we really want this, that when we weighed this out, this wasn't an easy decision because we have the same feelings about the Dodge Durangos that we had. What I would tell you is that these are going to be police packaged, which I believe our Durangos were not police packaged.
Right.
So they upgrade a lot of the exterior equipment, not the interior equipment, like on luxury items. We're hoping, because we have two Dodge trucks right now that are in our fleet. One has 130,000 miles on it, and it's been a pretty stable, strong vehicle. The other one has 87,000. And for both of those, we haven't had to put any major expense into them. Now, I sat down with Kyle and Steve from the shops, and we discussed this at length, whether this was a good idea and what they thought, because they're the ones that are really tell us, yeah, I don't think we should go down this route. But what I would tell you is we are taking a gamble that they will hold up, because we haven't had these in the past. And when we ran into the Durango problem that we had, the shops they were calling me, get rid of those as fast as you can, get them out of your fleet, do what you can. We are down to 2 of those that we use on a regular basis, and and those ones are holding up. They don't run as hard as our patrol units, and I think that has been that's why the Tahoe is so popular to us, is because of the reliability. And we do have problems, but not like we did with the Durangos. Now we're hoping, because these trucks are police package, that they will hold up similar to the Durango. Yes, they are cheaper, so it is a one of those things that maybe in a few years they're going to look at us and go, get these out of your fleet. But at this point, with the because I've done some research on even the Ford Expedition and the Ford Interceptors. The Interceptors are not available, and in the past when we had Expedition, we did not have any. We had a lot of electrical problems with those, and I would much rather go Dodge, because the shops
They run Dodge.
felt that we would be better. And I personally drive one of those Dodge trucks, and I know what it's capable and what has what maintenance has been done on that.
And to answer your question, there are no Tahoes available. They say they'll be available next year, but at this point, this was probably the most cost-effective to try to establish the goal that we want to get, that extra vehicle, with the, being cost-effective as much as we can with the current budget. So, but I'm comfortable with it because the shops are familiar with the Dodge trucks. So, and that was the other thing we talked with Steve and Kyle's like, well, you guys know how these things are, so if something happens, you should be really familiar how to fix whatever happens.
Well, I just didn't want you settling for an inferior vehicle just to try to fit it into your budget. And if you can't get the Tahoes, that changes things, and if
Yes.
then the shop is comfortable with it, then
Yeah.
I'm okay.
We definitely try to cover all our bases, because we did have like 3 different options, and we feel like this is our best option.
Okay.
And the functionality between a Tahoe and a pickup, I mean,
We've had trucks in the past.
Yeah.
I drove a truck for many years in patrol. The way the trucks are designed now, where you have the 4 doors, we run a half cage no matter what. Even in our Tahoes, we run a half cage, so it's a lot. It's helpful. There is some issues whether or not it's going to take us some time to get the cage that we're looking for, but as far as reliability as transporting and reliability of taking care of the officer, it will fit the needs that they have. So
Okay, now the major question.
Well, if we can hit the second item,
So
because
that could be a
what I would,
flip-flop.
exactly. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
I know,
thinking.
that's-
So if we can hit
So-
that, then I'll talk funding. if
So
that's
the
okay.
second item would be our jail van, the new lease that we had. I think we're entering our 3rd year of
This is
that
year
lease. So what the request would be to pay off that lease with the ARPA money that I know you're looking to pay, or however you want to pay off that lease. The payment for this year doesn't come due till August, and that payment happens to be $7,800.
Imagine that. Wow, creative.
So if the payoff amount is just under $23,000, it's $22,960. This is year 3 of 5. We could save roughly, well, $7,655 over the next 2 years if we paid this lease off. And then what we could do is we could use this year's lease payment to make that $7,000 difference for the leases. And then if we could potentially use, I don't think we have any ARPA funds unallocated at this point, but we do have some PILT money that was budgeted for the jail boiler, that we could use that $23,000, pay these leases off, and then save us, $7,000 in the next 2 years' budgets of operating. And then have that one paid off. It was one we were gonna buy back anyways.
It's a buyback. And the van is probably something we rotate it's not every 5 years.
It's got like 19,000 miles on it right now.
Yeah, it's gonna be like
So-
a 10-year rotation.
Yeah.
No, that'd be a good purchase.
And it falls in
Concerns?
line with paying off those
So-
other leases.
Are these two different options here? Am I reading this right?
They're 2 asks. They're 2 different asks.
So they're asking for both of these?
Yes.
They want to find the 7K to lease in another vehicle and also purchase outright the jail van?
Yes.
And so what you've described here is perhaps using the PILT money as far as the purchase, and what about this 7K, where's that coming from?
And then that'll come from the jail lease payment that we would make in July.
On the van. Or,
Which means-
yeah, on the van.
Which means if basically if we pay off the lease van, then they have the funds they need to lease 6 new vehicles instead of the 5, and we can take care of that wellness complex position.
And then the van's done.
But with this, what you're discussing, we have all the money
Yes.
to do this, okay?
Yes. And I can bring, if you decide to do this, I can bring forward a budget revision to allocate that 23,000 to pay off the van out of PILT and just move it from the one line down to the other.
Okay.
Further questions? Motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move that we authorize the comptroller to change the budget, provide us with the budget revision to purchase the jail van and then lease the patrol vehicle as discussed.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right.
Thank you.
We're all comfortable with that. I am, so, thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Christie?
Can I have one quick second? So I don't forget to do this. Sorry. Just wanna make sure I've got that reallocation written down. Christy Clauser, Comptroller, I have for the board the quarterly report, budget to actual revenue and expenses for period ending 3/31. There are, I can run through just a few highlights. I provided this to you a little late yesterday. But as I ran through, the revenue is your first page of each fund. Revenues look like they're gonna come in where they need to be. And then as far as expenditures, payroll should be at 49% because we have 27 pay periods this year. Most everybody looked like they're in good shape. As far as operating budget, we had a few departments that were well underspent, just simply because of timing. Assessors, they haven't had their big purchases yet, so they're at 12%.
Let me interrupt you just a second. Revenues,
Yes,
so second half taxes are due now,
in June.
but yeah,
Yeah. So the
So-
next quarter I report, that number will look
then
better.
everything will average
Yes.
out. Okay.
Yeah, and then all the other revenues will, potentially we'll see where those are at, but everybody looked like they were pretty much at where they should be. And if they're not where they should be, it's because it's seasonal, and we haven't received the money yet.
Okay, thank you.
So like data processing, they're at 84%. They're already at 84%, not 50%, just simply because like our Tyler software is paid annually. That was paid in November. So that's going to skew their percentage of expenses. So they've paid the bulk of their budget out already. Ambulance is at 60%. That's because we've made 7 contract payments. So that's going to put them at a little bit higher than the 50%. District court marshals, they're only at 10%. It's because they've got capital that they haven't spent yet. Fair maintenance and fair exhibit are at 6 and 10%. And that's just simply because they're seasonal. So they haven't really done a lot of work yet this year. Indigent public defenders is at 59%, so that's one that we might want to watch. Appraisal, they haven't sent out their tax notices yet, so they're only at 11%. Veterans is at about 17%. Again, it's because they've got some capital that they haven't spent yet, so they're a little bit under. Might want to urge them to get going. But they have the ARPA projects too, so that's probably where their focus is. Noxious weed and mosquito are at 3 and 8%, and again, that's
Season.
because they're seasonal. Snowmobile is at 75%, and again, that's because they're seasonal, they're pretty much done for the year. Waterways, we have not spent any money there. We're gonna get on that and get that money spent so that we don't have to scramble at the end of the year.
Deja vu.
Landfill is at 22%. Again, they've got a lot of capital money that they haven't spent yet. And then forensic pathology, that one is one I only wanted to bring up because we're over budget on that in operating, but we have sufficient funds in a budget. So I will bring forward a budget revision to move money from A down to B. We're pretty much done spending any money in there. It's just gonna be to determine what we'll end up doing with that monies as soon as we hear back from the state. So I'll probably move all of A and B, or all of A and benefits down to operating, just so that when we decide to spend that money out, it'll look appropriate budget-wise. So, any questions?
No, it's just amazing to go through that. I mean, it's 208 pages or whatever. That's quite a bit. But you look at every fire district, every school district, and people don't realize we have 5 school districts within Bannock County. I mean, they think of Marsh Valley and they think of Pocatello, and that's it.
But don't forget the little 3
We have 3 other
that are
ones that
shared.
we have to participate with.
Yeah.
Get the opportunity to participate with.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Any questions?
No, it's good.
Thank you. All right, Shanda.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shanda Crystal, Chief Procurement Officer. I have a procurement update for the board. We want to start with the first one for the jail HVAC. I had originally talked to the board about potentially combining the needs for the HVAC upgrades over at the annex with the jail and hopefully do that in one. Now that I understand each project a little better, that's not going to be able to happen. The needs out at the jail are more of a making adjustments to the current equipment that we have, and where the annex is going to need to be new equipment. They're just not going to coincide, so we're going to move forward with the jail piece. I'm hoping to have that drafted into Levi for the first draft review by tomorrow. If we can go to the commission security cameras. That we have received all of the scope of work back from each department that is interested in that project, and we're drafting it up, and we're hoping to have that first draft next week for review. On the facilities for the 2 boilers, that was the first project that the architect felt would come out of architectural services, so we've aligned with their potential calendar, and the draft has been submitted to Dan for review, and we plan right now on publishing on May 14th if everything continues to work forward through engineering services. Down for road and bridge road striping, questions are due on Monday for that solicitation. On the Event Center concert production, we'll have that bid opening today at 11. On the Commissioner's 6th Street and entrance renovation, we are evaluating that proposal that we received. We also set up, because it did come in 40% over budget, we did set up a meeting with the contractor, the architect, and internal department heads to be able to review and kind of understand where. Are there easy things that we can adjust and change in that project to get it in line with budget? What are some of our options there? And we're hoping we'll have that meeting next Thursday, and we'll bring options back before the board for review on that one. On the fireworks display, we had sent that contract over to Acme Pro Pyro, and they have reviewed it and signed it, and it'll be back for the board for review and signature next Thursday. And the final one I wanted to report on is the forensic pathologist shell. I had asked for permission to evaluate the 3 other buildings that were proposed to see if that shell would perhaps fit any of those needs that we could move forward with that. And I just wanted to review what we found. For the YDC office building up at the Event Center, it's been determined that a conventional stick frame is going to work better for the needs that they have up there in some of the building codes, and so it didn't quite fit that need. If we move down to Downey on the exhibit hall, the square footage and the slope that was created in the original shell building isn't going to fit the current draft that we have and the needs for the exhibit hall. And then with the barn, we are limited on square footage because of the location of other current buildings, as well as some center posts that weren't going to quite work out well. So my current recommendation to the board would be to cancel that solicitation and move forward to bid out these 3 buildings individually. This is not, my item is just an update. It's not set for a decision, but I did want to at least report my findings. But then that is the recommendation that I'll bring before the board next Thursday on that one.
Okay.
Were there any other questions?
Comments?
Nope, it's good.
Thank you very much. A lot of projects. I talked to Dan on the way in this morning.
He's a busy bee.
They're busy.
Mm-hmm. True enough.
They did get the sonotube in.
Hey. Okay.
And finish that building that's been there for, it's just like the jail.
We'll finish it up. Okay.
All right, thank you. All right. Next is follow-up decision on property tax exemptions request from Portland Health Trust. I did try to call them on Monday. Received a call late last night. I wasn't in the office. But to move forward on this, I just didn't see where they answered the questions on the application for tax exemption. Any questions?
No, we need more information, need a better discussion with them.
And so I would just advise the assessor's office to deny these and have them come in and move forward. They can file their appeal or whatever, but that's what I'd say. We'll see what we can do in a conversation with them.
So is it a direct denial, or do we just have them come in and have a conversation before we do that?
Well, our timeline is to deny
Okay.
and have them come in and they can appeal.
Okay.
Otherwise,
I was just
we
trying
got to make a decision. Come on up here.
Okay, so technically you have till May 15th to deny these, but I need to have my notices to Master's Touch by May 13th. But,
Well, we can't hit that date,
So-
so,
just to answer your question.
okay, thank you. So, Mr. Chair, then I would move that we deny the property tax exemption requests for Portland Health Trust as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. With that being said, we are at recess.